From the Chesapeake Bay Journal, your source for independent environmental reporting, this is Chesapeake Uncharted, the podcast that uncovers stories about the Bay, its interconnected ecosystem, and the people who rely on them. I'm Jeremy Cox. On today's episode...
It's incredible. Like, we had this discussion multiple times. We were a group of 16 to 18-year-olds. We weren't confident that our idea was going to be taken seriously, especially in federal government. A lot of people are older, have years and years of experience. The people we were presenting to have been doing this longer than we've been alive.
Who says Washington is broken? Well, maybe not completely broken. Our guest today has a story to tell that may just make you think twice about the power of the people. And once you hear it, I think you'll understand why we're bestowing the title of Wave Maker onto her. Grace Ziegmont lives in suburban Pennsylvania, not far from Harrisburg. She is 16 years old, our youngest wave maker so far. She is homeschooled and has one sibling, a younger sister. She's into nature, especially birds. One of the highlights of her young life, as she tells it, was getting to see Atlantic puffins during a trip to Maine last summer. So, maybe she's not your typical teenager. But maybe she's not all that different. A 2021 survey conducted by the Pew Research Center shows that millennials and Gen Z adults stand out for their devotion to protecting the environment. A quick primer, in case you don't work with these social science terms every day. Millennials are defined as those born between the early 1980s and late 1990s. Gen Z includes those born between the late 90s and early 2010s. The survey found that about 70% of both generations said that climate change should be the top issue to ensure a sustainable planet for future generations. When asked if climate change was their top overall concern, well over 30% of Gen Z and millennials agreed. Long story short, young people care about the environment. Welcome to Season 3 of Chesapeake Uncharted. This time, our team here at the Bay Journal is interested in hearing from a younger generation of Bay leaders, the people who weren't born when the Chesapeake Bay cleanup formally began 40 years ago. With the Bay restoration effort facing its current set of cleanup goals in 2025, this felt like a good time to go searching for some inspiration. Each episode spotlights one of these wave makers. Today, our guest is Grace Ziegmont. She has packed more environmental action in her 16 years than most people accomplish in a lifetime, and she still has big plans for the future. We'll dive right into it after this short break.
Hi, this is Laura Lutz, editor at the Chesapeake Bay Journal. I hope you're enjoying our podcast, and I'd like to invite you to join the community of Bay Journal readers. If you care about climate change, wildlife, clean air, healthy communities, and of course the Bay and its rivers, you'll find news you can use at the Bay Journal, along with some great ideas for outdoor travel. Our subscriptions are free. Check us out at bayjournal.com and click on subscribe to start receiving the best independent environmental news in the Bay region.
Hello again. On today's episode of Chesapeake Uncharted, we're listening to my interview with Grace Ziegmont. She may still be a teenager, but when it comes to the environment, she speaks with knowledge well beyond her years. Much of that can be traced to her participation in 4-H, the venerable youth organization that emphasizes experiential learning in the outdoors. Yeah, it's much more than raising prize pigs for the county fair. Ziegmont is active in archery, air pistol, wildlife activities, and the Teen Council. In 2023, the Pennsylvania 4-H chapter named Grace as one of its state project ambassadors. These are members who provide guidance to 4-H staffers statewide on programming and projects. Grace also serves as the president of the Governor's Youth Council for Hunting, Fishing, and Conservation. And I haven't even gotten to her role in making historic change happen within a federal agency. It's much better hearing it from her anyway. So let's get started. Well, Grace Ziegmont, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you are officially the youngest wave maker that we've had so far, and really excited to jump into it here. I found out about you because of your work through 4-H, and you have, as of last year, a pretty important role with them. Can you tell me about what you do at a state level there?
Yeah, so I'm a state project ambassador. I cover environmental science, shooting sports, and camping, but I've mostly focused on environmental science and camping the past 2 years. So what the state project ambassadors do is a program that we get professional development all throughout the year. We have our monthly meetings, and we also provide youth feedback to the program. So how the event looks from a participant standpoint, how we think it can improve, things we like, things that should stay the same. And we also get to connect with people across the state so that we get to learn more about our project areas that we're all passionate about.
Well, let's back up a little bit. I'm from the city, as it were, growing up, and I never had an opportunity to do 4-H. What is 4-H? What does it do?
There's a lot of different areas of 4-H. I'm also from a more urban area. I'm from the Harrisburg area. So I have never been very involved in agriculture or livestock. It's the one project area I haven't done actually. But 4-H at its core is a youth development organization that teaches hard skills like leadership and similar skills that can be used in a career later down the road. It might be in livestock, you might go into more of an agriculture career. But I know a lot of people like myself don't plan on it, but we learn these leadership skills like public speaking, ways to better communicate with a team so that we can take this into our career or whatever else you plan to do after you graduate out of 4-H.
You're 16 years old, and you've been with 4-H, did I see correct, for 11 of those 16 years?
Yeah, I joined when I was, I think, 5 or 6. I was just talking about it last night. You lose track of how long you've been in it. I feel like I've always been in it.
Well, why did you join, and what's kept you involved, do you think?
I joined because my mother decided, you're homeschooled, you need to go talk to more people, which I was at first very opposed to. I wasn't very social. But 4-H kind of threw me out of that. And I've gotten involved in every aspect of 4-H I can, from leadership. I'm a club officer. I'm our club president at the moment. So I lead meetings, get to talk to other people from my club that are a lot younger than me and kind of mentor them. And it's also just led to different avenues. Like I got into a program called Wildlife Leadership Academy because my county educator nominated me for it, and that has led to going to study puffins in Maine.
What would you say has been your favorite activity, your favorite thing that you've done with 4-H?
My favorite activity by far was the national conference. So you can apply to the state office to go. I was accepted last year, and I got to go. You have 24 hours to work with other people your age to come up with a proposal to whatever government agency you're assigned. I was assigned to the Council of Environmental Quality, Executive Office to the President.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to go to the White House and present on how youth can get more involved, especially at a national level. So what we presented to them was a youth council under the EPA that would give feedback and advice, especially from college students who are currently researching these types of things. It was accepted and started, their first council started in October, which is super exciting to see. Like it started out as like I was going to club meetings every month, and now our ideas are being used on a national scale.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, I was super impressed by that, and I think that's why we were like, Grace is definitely a wave maker. How did you come to settle on that as your idea of creating that youth council within EPA?
So all 20 of us had some sort of experience with leadership in 4-H. Obviously, we had applied to this national conference. So one thing we all agreed was that our feedback has been beneficial, at least slightly, in our programs across the country and across different U.S. territories. So we were like, this isn't really a thing that's in our government. There's a couple on a state level, like Pennsylvania has a state governor's youth council, but a lot of states don't. And there's never been a national youth council. So we started researching it, and we found that at the time, there was only one youth council globally that's on a national level that was in the UK. So we're like, why can't we replicate this?
Right. Reading from the press release, it says EPA established the National Environmental Youth Advisory Council in 2023 to provide independent advice and recommendations to the administrator, Michael Reagan at this point, on how to increase EPA's efforts to address a range of environmental issues as they relate to youth, with an emphasis on communities below 29 years of age. So is that pretty much what you all had pitched at the time, or do you feel like they tweaked a bit?
There are definitely differences of just like logistics. Like I think we had it set to slightly younger,
Mhm.
but it's at the core the same. Something that was important to us was the diversity aspect of it because the US is so broad. There's so many different cultural groups and just it's just so diverse that we didn't want it to be a lot like our government. Well, we sat down, we looked at the government, we're like, this is a lot of old white men.
Mhm.
So how can we change this? So we made it a point to say, hey, we want someone from two people from each region of the US and then two people from US territories and US tribal land so that we have this feedback from people who are usually not uplifted.
Absolutely. So there's 16 members, it says. It is, in fact, the first ever EPA committee or council to be occupied by young people. The current members are all age 16 to 29, and they did put an emphasis on memberships who represent, environmental justice type communities. And to be clear, you are not a member yourself, correct? So, but I
Now,
suppose in the future, right? I mean,
yeah,
beginning, right?
hopefully.
What was it like going in? You were at the White House to
Yeah,
pitch?
we're in, there's kind of like some office buildings off the White House, which is
Mhm.
where we presented. It was terrifying. Again, they were
No.
all much older than we were. I think the youngest was in her 30s. Like, we're a bunch of teenagers who are from mostly rural America. Like, we have no experience in this. But they were super welcoming. They were very excited to hear what we had to say. They asked a ton of questions, and we could tell they really care and they really want to get involved with youth. It's just an obstacle. How do we get involved with youth?
We've talked a little bit about how the upper echelons of government can be older and, homogenous and that sort of thing. Why do youth voices matter? I mean, some of you aren't even old enough to vote yet.
Yeah, 18% of the country is under 18. It changed. Hold on. It's 23% of the country's population is under 18. Yet there's no opportunity to give feedback. And especially with college students, these people are actively researching and actively studying their field. Why can't they be the ones to give feedback? They have the most up-to-date research, they're doing the research. Why is it that they have to report to someone to give that information? Why can't they give that information themselves?
What role do you see this council playing? What would you like to see them speak on and affect change?
I don't know. I know we discussed, like, for example, this all happened around the time that the train derailed in Ohio
Mhm.
and caused the oil spill. So
The
in
East
that case,
Palestine, right?
yeah, in that case, they could have given feedback of like, this is how we best think it could be cleaned up. This is what's worked in the past. This is a new idea that might not be thought of. Like, for example, when we proposed this, one of the first things said by one of the chairs of this committee was, wow, I can't believe we didn't think of this.
Mm.
So youth have a different standpoint. A lot, especially diverse youth from underserved communities, have a different background than a lot of these people and have new ideas that might not have been even considered before.
Where does your love for the environment come from?
I've always kind of been interested in wildlife and just the environment in general. I joined my first 4-H club was a wildlife club, which I'm still involved with. So it's always just since I was 5, like it's always been there. It's always something like we go on hikes, we go fishing, we go kayaking. And I'm lucky enough to live in a very rural space surrounding where I live. Like, yes, I live in the suburbs, but there are tons of state parks. There's very green and rural areas around me that I have access to. I got involved with shooting sports in middle school, and that has also opened up a lot of environmental stuff because it's mostly outside. It's mostly like one of my clubs, we shoot on someone's farm. Like it's very rural,
Mhm.
and you get to interact with the environment more.
Right, you were saying before we got on here, it's not hunting. I guess it's like target sports then.
Yep, I do shooting sports mostly through 4-H. I do a couple of things outside of 4-H,
Mhm.
but the big things are so we have during the winter for air pistol is what I'm focusing on this year. So during the winter we have our weekly practices that lead up to the state contest, and then I think we go back to monthly practices, and then it kicks up again into higher gear next winter.
That's cool. So what is an air pistol?
It is a pistol is powered by a there's some variation, but mine is a cartridge with CO2 in it
Mhm.
that works very similar to like a regular pistol, except there is a lot less lead that's introduced to the environment because the pellets are so small, which is
Mhm.
something I'm also very interested in, like the ramifications of shooting sports and lead
And
into the ground.
you're shooting at like a bullseye or something, or
Yeah, we use mostly paper targets in a little metal box that are 20, 30 yards away.
and I'm sure you hit that bullseye every time, right?
Oh, definitely.
That's cool. Have you won awards at this or?
Yeah, I last June I placed first for my age division in air pistol and archery at the
Wow.
regional competition, as well as getting first overall in air pistol at the regional competition.
Oh, that's exciting. Very
Yeah,
cool.
and second place at states with archery.
Is there anything kind of environmental that you're involved with?
Not directly in 4-H, but I'm the president of the Governor's Youth Council for Hunting, Fishing, and Conservation.
Mhm.
And this year especially, we're trying to get more like give back to our communities. I know they have a stream cleanup planned for this summer, and we've been talking about doing a range cleanup for a while now.
Gosh, you have such a long resume. I missed that one. When were you appointed to that board?
I was uh, I was accepted in June of 2023, and I was president by November 2023.
Funny that they reel you in. And
Yeah,
what's the point? What is the purpose of that board?
we do a lot. A lot of what we do is education for people on the council, people outside the council. We speak at a couple different conferences. We have a booth at Farm Show where we talk to the public. But one of the main things we do is advise the governor, DCNR, Game Commission, Fish and Boat Commission on different hunting, fishing, and conservation legislation that comes up. So
Mhm.
oftentimes that entails writing a letter to the governor's office or maybe Fish and Boat Commission of this is what we think about this bill, this is our feedback, and then
Mhm.
hopefully help advise and shape the opinion of whoever we're writing to.
Putting you on the spot again here, but what would you say is the biggest thing that the adults in the room, so to speak, should know about what youth care about when it comes to the environment?
I feel like the big thing is just youth perspective in general. Oftentimes I'm told throughout different things I do, like, a lot of youth are unmotivated. You just play video games. You're not interested in what's going on around you. And if you take the time and are willing to listen to youth voices and listen to youth feedback, you'll find that's not the case. It's just a lack of opportunity oftentimes, which is one of the reasons I am so like into 4-H and think everyone should be at least a little bit involved in 4-H because there is that platform to give your feedback that it often isn't taken seriously in other spaces.
I wonder what you would say, and it's clear you've given a lot of thought to this. Some people might be skeptical. Oh, you created a youth council. That's nice window dressing, or that's a feel good kind of measure. What do you say to that person who thinks it's just, oh, good public relations and nothing more?
Even if it is just public relations, which most of these aren't, it's a good way for youth to get involved in their communities, learn about more issues that might not even be on the top of our, like in front of us.
Mhm.
Um, and at the very worst, if it does nothing else, it gives them networking opportunities to build those future relations for their future careers. Maybe
Mm.
they don't do anything. Maybe this does just fall to the side. At worst, that's what happens. But at best, they give active feedback. They are actively engaging with their communities and learning about new issues that might not even be on anyone's radar. And they're actively networking and building relationships to help their future careers.
You're in high school now. What's next for you?
I don't know. I'd like to go to Penn State Du Bois for wildlife technology. I've been kind of looking more into political science majors a little bit more recently.
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah, I
know.
saw that wildlife technology. I This is the city boy in me. What is that?
It's not what it sounds like at all. It's kind of an all-around wildlife degree. I know they do bird banding. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Obviously, I love birds. But it is an associate's degree, and you can do an additional 2 years to earn your bachelor's degree in wildlife and fishery sciences at Penn State main campus.
One thing I ask everybody, and when I say this in talking about the Chesapeake Bay, it doesn't have to necessarily, again, mean the actual estuary itself. It could mean, your local creek or the land use around you. I'm wondering if you had any advice, what you would like to see. I mean, basically, this is our own regional, environmental do-gooder force, right? And I don't know, what if you had your say, what would you like to see them put their energy and, the money into?
I think one thing that's very important, it's starting to get recognized more, is diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Hmm.
Um, Again, like I said before, a lot of groups are predominantly white, predominantly male. And especially as an autistic person, it can be harder to get these opportunities. People hear that I'm autistic and okay, well, we might take you a little bit less seriously or make you prove yourself, which shouldn't be the case. It should be an open playing field for anyone, regardless of your skin tone, if you're disabled, if you're a man. Like it should be an open space that I don't feel like it always is at the moment.
I didn't know that you were on the spectrum there. So how does that impact you, if I may ask? And you can you can say buzz off as well. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm very open about the fact that I'm autistic, especially in the spaces I'm in. There's a stigma to it, which I don't always like. The biggest thing for me is I struggle with communication quite often and getting my point across. But having people, especially in the environmental circles that I'm in, people are starting to get more open-minded. I might not come out and say like I'm autistic right off the bat. I might wait a little bit and
Right.
so that you get to know me, which shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't have to see what I do and then learn, oh, you're autistic. That doesn't affect anything about how well your work ethic is or how well you can engage with the public. Like it shouldn't really be a deciding factor of whether or not I can do things. I can decide whether or not I can do things. I don't need you deciding for me.
Yeah. Does being in nature, is that therapeutic?
Yeah. I I work at a summer camp and I work with a lot of neurodivergent kids.
Hmm.
And just being in nature in general, I know like harsh lighting. People laugh when I say this, but especially like fluorescent lighting, it rings and it drives me crazy.
Oh yeah.
But there's not fluorescent lighting out in nature. There's not going to be a fluorescent lighting out on a hiking trail. So it is very relaxing. There's not all the stimulation that comes, especially from an urban community.
How do you think we get more youth involved in this space, in the environmental space?
The biggest thing that I have advocated for in the past couple of years is just the just allow them to get involved, create councils, create spaces for youth to get involved because it's not of a lack of, well, we don't want to, it's a lack of opportunity to. A lot of youth, I know countless people my age who are very motivated to do what they want to do. They're very motivated to help the environment and give back to the community, but they struggle to find spaces where they can and that will allow them to. So just more of like a general open-mindedness of letting youth inhabit these spaces, especially we're in the next generation. We are going to be who is in charge of these spaces one day. Why can't we get a head start and learn more about them now instead of just being thrown into it when we're older?
Mm. So make sure they have a forum. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
Grace is awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Chesapeake Uncharted is brought to you by the Bay Journal, your source for independent environmental news in the Chesapeake region. Production for this episode was by me, Jeremy Cox. The story was edited by Laura Lutz. Our marketing and advertising director is Jackie Kane. You can find more episodes of Chesapeake Uncharted on your favorite streaming service or at ChesapeakeUncharted.com. If you like what you're hearing, sign up for a free Bay Journal news subscription at BayJournal.com. Until next time, this has been Jeremy Cox. Take care.